name's Josh Smith. I teach at WSU. I've been teaching for almost a decade, a little bit longer than that actually. And I teach graphic design, so mostly in the arts, in the art field, but in a more practical sense for businesses to build growth and delight audiences. So the audience is usually a little bit more considered than in other art forms. I have always been drawn to creating, to making things. I've always loved to draw for as long as I can remember. I'm sure I was the kid that did the doodles and showed it to the parents who then, put it up on the fridge as some champion piece of artwork, although it's just scribbles, right? So, always loved to draw. I remember distinctly this very fun moment when I was a kid of wishing that I could create magic, not in like card trick sense, but in just making and creating things. And I think I sort of accidentally pursued that by just continuing to draw, wanting to take art classes, even if I didn't get along with my art teachers, which is sometimes did happen, but I just love to draw, sort of fell in love with motion and animation and cartoons when I was growing up. I loved illustration books, all the old illustrations, just pen and ink things, so just fell in love with that. After pursuing that for some time, trying to figure out what anyone can do in sort of the high school age, right? You're sort of making these life decisions. What am I going to do for the rest of my life? I just felt like art was a way to do that. I didn't take any graphic design classes until college, so kind of fell into that mode during the college scene. And I think I had a misconception of what that was. I think I was intended on making video games for a living or drawing illustrations or characters for stories or comics or something. And then when I got into graphic design, I sort of discovered what it is, and it's a way to delight in the details. It's a way to create things that become so well balanced and so well accepted that it's almost ignored in a way, and it becomes kind of in the back of the mind, in the back of the scene. I think people who are not familiar with graphic design maybe don't notice it as much as other people. Everything is designed, so that was kind of my introduction to that, and fell in love with it and just stuck with it. So. Well, we met in graduate school, so we were both going into the arts and teaching. She was doing ceramics and I was doing graphic design. So it's always been a part of our collaboration. We sort of were in the mode of having to create shows for graduate school, so that was always something that was shared between us, something that we could help each other with. I helped her build all of her pedestals and things for her graduate show. So I think it's always been something between us. It keeps us together because it's a shared activity. I feel like having a shared activity keeps us communicating with each other. We're always asking for feedback. What do you think of this? How does it express? What do you see here? Just to get that another opinion based on kind of what we're trying to create. So it is a shared collaborative space for sure. We do work in very different mediums. Casey is a 3D sculptor. I do 2D work, so we're in just completely different dimensions most of the time. Her work is very physical. It's very her molding the clay, twisting it, pinching it, pushing it into place. I do a similar activity, I think, with pixels. So working in a similar sense, I do push the pixels, I blur them, I stretch them, I pull them. So in some ways we use similar language, I think, to communicate and to create with, in that sense. Casey's interested in, I think in some ways, kind of highlighting the beauty of small details. And I think that's something that we have in common. I'm trying to find a similar way to bring out the simplicity, the things that are sort of overlooked, and to highlight that. So we do have some things in common. Her work is also, about an ocean. It's sort of about a space that isn't there. We're in Kansas, as we know, so we don't have access to these kinds of materials and creatures that she would growing up on the East Coast. So this is something that I think is dear to her heart, but also not accessible. I'm also interested in space. I'm interested in sky. I'm interested in depth. I'm interested in atmosphere. And so to create a space that is just open and empty, kind of makes room for her work, I think. And so in that way that she has a weight to hers, I sort of have an atmosphere and airiness to mine. And I think they complement each other in that way, almost in a contrasting way. So. We create, I think, as I mentioned, as something that's just natural to us. It's in our blood, it's in our personality, it's in our need to sort of be expressive in that way. And because of that, I think we kind of have this practice where we bounce ideas off of each other. And being able to have that allows us to develop in unison. A lot of times we're interested in finding the joy in the process of of being a creative, of building, of creating something. And in that sense, we are kind of always pursuing this kind of understanding of, well, what's the next thing that we are interested in exploring. It becomes a personal journey, a sort of artistic personal journey. I don't know that there's ever a destination. I don't know that it's ever going anywhere in particular. We're just sort of searching and discovering things that we love. So it is a passion, it's a love, it's a pursuit that I think will last for a very long time, and we do get to share that. It is a wholeness, a oneness of character to find and be creative and get into the flow state. So in my process, I am searching for kind of unique composition. I'm always trying to compose things. I think it's just an arrangement of material and object, and space actually is one of the most crucial elements when you're arranging things. And I slowly started to develop this kind of intense love and appreciation of just emptiness, of allowing space is what allows form to stand out. And if you have space around that form, the form becomes more present, it becomes more highlighted, it stands out in a way. And I think something that I love is just the depth of things, the distance of things, the things that are far away, and how that changes our view to appreciate the beauty of that distance rather than having things so up close. So I'm always trying to find a way to build atmosphere, and I find that emptiness paired with texture is a way to create atmosphere. It still has depth, but the texture also makes an interplay between the surface and the distance that's being sort of visualized. And as sort of a response in our day and age, I mean, AI art is a thing. Everything is sort of like changing in the art sphere. I find that, doing very realistic realism, just the way that photography changed painting way back when. We don't need people to be quite as capable of making perfect realism. And so I've sort of developed this love of abstraction, and in response to that, using work to be able to just create form and color and hue and shape, but have it be very obscure and sort of hidden behind just depth, and find open areas for just gradients to exist. As part of my process, I'm trying to blend photography of the sky. I love absolute sky colors, sunrises, sunsets, I think are the most beautiful hues that are in existence. I love that. And then capture that along with just the tactile things. Wood grain is a beautiful texture. Water on glass is a beautiful texture. Sand can be a beautiful texture on the beach. And just noticing that as a two-dimensional flat surface and seeing how I can blend that with the depth of the sky. So when you add, glass over top of the sky, you're sort of creating this separation between you and the environment, and now that separation is visible through the texture that's left on the glass. So it deepens the conversation, I think, between the depth that's there. And in that practice, I am just trying to find ways to blend those two together as much as I can in sort of an abstract way. I think my work becomes these kind of abstract landscapes almost on accident because of that. in the same way that you might look at wood grain or a cloud and see a shape, or like a teddy bear or a dragon or something in the sky, you can sort of see texture and surface and color and geometry as landscape. And so in a similar way, I'm sort of creating environment. I'm creating space that maybe hasn't existed before, at least, fingers crossed. I sort of mentioned this a little bit. I think my art practice is a way to escape to a sanctuary where creativity and expression are just a natural flow state. And as we all are sort of aware, the world is, a dumpster fire more often than not, and seems to be headed into more dumpster fire territory the more we pay attention to things. So art for me really is an escape from that, is a space where I just get to be in that flow state of solving a puzzle, of drawing, of doodling, of painting, of creating with shapes, of exploring composition, of being lost in hues and colors. And what's amazing about art and the practice, of course, is that you have something to show after that. So it's not just an escape like a consumerist escape, right? You're doing the opposite of consuming something, you're making something. And because there is that difference in time spent, you have something now that can become useful or shared with others. And beyond the commerce side of art, of course, buy all the paintings for sure. But even beyond that, we get to share it and talk about it. And if you like something that I've made that you see, then that gives us something in common. And now that art form is now something that is shared between a community, between friends, between colleagues. And that, I think, means we've brought people together. So I think art, in the sense, is a glue for society, and it's a gift to society. It gives us something to have in common when we're so predisposed to be competitive and argue and try to grab things. So I think it is a response to consumerism. I think being in the creative mode. Oh, so many. Let's see. I love that we're in a library, so I'm going to think of a bunch of books. Where's Waldo books were so inspiring to me as a kid because it was just absolute chaos, right? And you could get lost in those pictures for so much time. There was something incredibly wonderful about those. And I don't know that it was that everything was perfect, right? Not all the characters were proportional. It wasn't perfect art form, but there was just so much delight and so much to look at. And I think I'm drawn to the idea of making something that can have time invested into viewing it. I love that idea. Children's illustration books I absolutely loved. The original Winnie the Pooh illustrations were incredible. These like little pen and ink drawings. I think that's what led me to love drawing so much as a kid, was to just have books, and to have illustrations as part of those books as an addition to the narrative, right? As an addition to storytelling. Influences, I have so many design influences. There's hundreds of thousands of designers that we could be influenced from. I think I'm interested in tackling scale as part of my work, trying to find ways to make things just huge. So I'm more and more influenced by muralists, from artists who are making pieces that are just larger than life, and you get to almost live in the painting. And I think that scale is something that I could approach in a way to try and find ways to invite people to be in the artwork more, which is certainly one of my goals. So murals, arts, paints. We talked a little bit about AI art because it's so fast now to make illustrations that are realistic-ish, right? None of them are perfect and they're all kind of like bleh, but I think they have their own style. And I think, as time goes on, we'll notice it as its own category of a thing, probably. I hope it feels serene. I hope it feels peaceful. I hope it is meditative, although I couldn't, necessarily design a ritual or something around viewing the artwork. I hope it feels calm. I hope it's an escape in a way that into a new space that's maybe not been interpreted before. And I think Casey would think the same thing about her work as well. I think it is something that isn't already present and helps us find something that maybe we didn't know we were longing for, which is just peace. And in the oversaturated lives that we have, I think it can be found in art and in that sort of serene space, in the color, in the texture, and in the space. Absolutely. I think Casey and I's bodies of work are continuing to influence each other. I'm actually starting to become more interested in the textures of water and more in the textures of sea and of ocean, and I think in response to her work. I think in response to my work, she's become more interested in abstraction. So she's starting to find ways to build in negative space into her work rather than oversaturated, sort of maximalist filled areas. So I think we are continuing to respond to each other. We're always constantly working on other bodies of work and continuing to grow and create. As I said, it's a compulsion. It's something that we'll continue to do whatever happens in life, just as part of our existence, I think, at this point. So yeah, we're continuing to work off of each other. I think we're interested in finding ways to build, I think, small classroom experiences. She's also a teacher, so she teaches for WSU as well, and Mark Arts and a couple other places in town, as a way to invite people to be part of that process. So I think we're going to try and find ways to exhibit our work in progress rather than just the finished pieces. I think that's something on our horizon too.